rotational sports, lacrosse, hockey, baseball, using conjugate. Yeah, there's going to be a difference. I think what people do sometimes is they put too much emphasis on the differences. To me, the basic program is going to be, it doesn't have to be varied a whole lot. My programming was usually very largely based on the level of lifter the athlete was in the weight room. So if we had a team that was good at lifting and motivated and paid attention to things, and we would push their training and advance it more as they could handle it. So to me, that was always my main guide in their training. I think if you put too much emphasis on, we'll get into the rotational things, or whatever adaptation you think it is for your sport that you need, you kind of you can start pulling away from the general program and diminishing the benefits that it can have. So if you're gonna make those adjustments, usually make those in your prehab movements or your warm-up stuff, some of your accessory movements. So if you look at your training from a 10,000 foot view, those adjustments and things that you do are really only going to make up probably 10 to 20% of the overall program. All right, so yeah, there's definitely some adjustments, but don't go too crazy. So just thinking real quick, do some adjustments in your jumps. Instead of doing just straight up box jumps, do some lateral jumps, some jumps where you turn in the air. With your med ball throws, do a little more rotational stuff or anti-rotation. You can increase the volume a little bit on the opposite of your dominant side, right? So if I'm a right-hand thrower, I'm going to be twisting to the left. Still do those throws that incorporate that, but you could increase the volume, throwing the opposite way a little bit to try to combat some of the overuse stuff you're going to see. Things like that. For pitchers, single leg stuff is good, but again, you don't need to go too crazy on that. So, those are just some examples. And then you have all the other stuff, baseball, your shoulder health, and that's already built in there. That really doesn't go with rotation. But yeah, so those things are always take those things into consideration, but don't go too crazy with it, because you can start just like anything else. If I spend too much time on my max effort stuff and don't do the other things, you're gonna fuck the program up. So any adjustments and adaptations you need to make to go sport specific or get closer to sport specific, with movements anyways, it's gonna be the minority of your program. Yeah, I think that covers that. All right, what else we got here? Okay. Best leg press alternative for small home gyms. Get a bigger fucking home gym and get a fucking Elite FTS leg press in there. There's a lot of different things. A sissy squat, a lot of sissy squat variations I think are a good alternative to leg press. Really, it depends how you're doing your leg press. But first thing off the top of my head would be a sissy squat. We have a couple machines that'll do that. You can set up I have this somewhere I think it's in my coaching logs. I think I call it Groany Sissy Squat, where you take a nylon strap, goes around your rack, and then loops around and hooks behind your knees. And then so that way you can really sit back into your squat. That's a good leg press variation. We have that belt squat attachment. I love that thing. Takes a load off your spine, still load the hips and legs. That would be a good variation. It kind of depends on why you're using the leg press, I guess. You know, I'm just thinking unloading the spine variations. So you know, it kind of depends if you're looking to, you know, am I trying to train quads more? Am I trying to unload my spine? So there's a few different ways you could go, but those are a couple quick things off the top of my head that could, if you don't have room for a leg press, that might help you out. Try to think of something else. Do the Hatfield style squat with the yoke bar. That might be, you know, something different. When's my next seminar? And next one's in Atlanta. Hard to keep, I think you meant to say, hips tight to the bar and chest up with sumo. This could be a bunch of things. My first guess is it's a form issue. And the thing that I see a lot with a lot of people on this is kind of their setup and before the lift actually starts. So when you're setting up, a lot of people will say start with the bar on your shins. I don't think that, in my experience, that's not the best way to go. Start when you look down. So the bar, now we're talking about sumo. You look down, the bar is basically over the big knuckle, the first knuckle of your big toe. So kind of where that main joint is in your foot, or maybe even out onto the toes more. From there, don't bend over to get to the bar. Think of, so here's my torso, like right here's my waist. I'm not gonna bend over, I'm gonna squat myself down. So to get set up, I'm basically gonna open my knees as hard as I can and squat myself down so I stay upright, and then get myself set on the bar. At that point, you're gonna pull the bar back into you, okay? And at the same time, you're gonna kind of push your hips forward into the bar and pull your triceps into your lats, and that's gonna wedge you underneath the bar, okay? So to kind of recap, I look down, the bar is kind of over my toes, not on my shins. All right, I'm gonna squat down to the bar, open my knees and keep my chest up, get my hands set. I like to take a breath before I start going down to the bar. Okay, so once I get on the bar, I'm gonna pull that into my shins, and as it's coming into my shins, think of opening your knees and pulling your shoulders back, pull your triceps into your lats, I don't know, whatever cue works best for you, and kind of let my chin roll up, okay? So all those things are gonna pull your hips and the bar closer together and help keep you upright. So like here's the bar, I'm kind of, what everybody talks about, wedging themselves in. I'm wedging myself in, I open my knees, that lets the bar come in. And then once those things are once you have all those things, it's gonna take practice. This is why speed days are such a great training tool for everybody, including beginners, okay? Because you have lighter weight, you can think your way through the lift and think about your setup and how you're executing things. Sorry, rant. Once you get all those things, then I'm gonna put a little tension into the bar. I can wedge myself under even more. You may feel you're gonna pull the bend out of the bar, or pull bend into the bar, pull the slack out of the bar, however you wanna say it. Then you start your pull. So right at that point, I always tell my people, think about driving out on your feet and driving your shoulders back at the same time, almost like your body's exploding outwards. Okay, I've got that pressure out on my feet, bam, drive my feet out, drive my shoulders back, and then you pull. So that should help you get in closer to the bar. Technique wise, it could be a mobility issue. To me, I think that's pretty rare. Most people have mobility issues with sumo because their hips are weak. Okay, because most people aren't used to having their knees open up. Once that happens, with a lot of beginners especially, or weaker hips, like their groin area is not used to being in that position. So it goes into survival mode and it starts grabbing on, and now my knees can't open up. Okay, so it's a lot of times with people, it may be a mobility issue, but the mobility issue is there because of weakness, because your body is going into survival mode and kind of gets scared, for lack of a better term, and starts grabbing on. So that, again, that's why the lighter weights with speed work and dynamic work are good, because we get a lot of sets at low reps and we get a chance to practice setup and all these things that are important. Okay, so try all that shit. If that doesn't work, let me know. Nate, do you ever train at a commercial gym or just in the garage? And is there a why? Yeah, I train at Absolute Performance here in Buffalo. We have a powerlifting area out in the back on the loading dock. I was just over there today. The past year, just with the way things have been, I've been really busy, and sometimes it's hard to get over there with my schedule. So the garage gym has been a godsend. And I like, honestly, I enjoy training by myself. You know, sometimes you need some help and stuff, but so I like both. I like going to the gym when I can, but I also like training in the garage. Is there a why? Like I said, my schedule's been the biggest why. That you know, before all this fucking bullshit, I would go to the gym 4 days a week. But like I said, everything that's been going on and changing my schedule has made it hard. So kind of what happened when all this stuff went down, it was like there was, between work and everything that was going on, my kids were sent home from school to, you know, do the distance learning stuff. There was no way I was getting to the gym. The gym's 20-30 minutes away. It was taking too much out of my day. And it was really stressing me out because, you know, if I didn't make it to the gym between certain hours, I wasn't going to get there, and that was pissing me off and stressing me out. So finally, you know, pulled the trigger and got the home gym going. So, you know, if I get an hour and a half break, I can get out there and get it done. And so it's been a big help to have that there, and I hope to continue to build it. But I have most of the stuff I need. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said for going and training with people too at a commercial gym, you know. But I'm lucky to have the stuff I have, really. So yeah, I like training both. What do I like to contrast with squats? Vertical jumps or broad jumps? Both. Mix it up. So here's my thought on contrast, coupling, post-activation, potentiation, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Here's how I always did it. I always tried to, I think there is a training boost from that. Well, I also think it's a little bit overdone. You know, do we need to do that all the time? I don't know. I think, to me, it's kind of an ace card. Pull your ace card out when you actually need it. So I usually save those things for when we were trying to peak. And what I also did with jumps, when we were getting into like our peaking phases, I would try to make them contraction specific to the sport. Okay, so think about your sport and the main movements that the athletes have to do. When we got into that coupling stuff, I would try to base the types of jumps that we did on what I thought the sport required. So I think the majority of people just throw in more plyometric type stuff because it's more intense. To me, I wanted to make the contraction types more specific to what we were trying to peak for. So like sprinters and jumpers, to me, those guys are more reactive. That's more of a reactive jump, or true plyometric, true shock method. So we would kind of, the majority of the jumps that we were pairing things with were that type of jump. Now a thrower, to me, that's more of a static overcome by dynamic. So we would do a little more seated jumps or a little more seated weighted jumps paired with their movement. That's, so that's it. Do both. Jumping in different directions, that's something that probably could have done a better job with and mixing that up more. But when you're putting in the contrast stuff and the pairing and that, I think it's important to pay attention to what type of jumps you're doing, what type of jumps the athlete needs more. So do all sorts of jumps, but as you get closer to the competition or your big competition, make those jumps more specific to that. Now, that being said, I consult with a high school in Ohio and work in this phase right now because we're getting towards playoffs. They have about 45-50 minutes in the weight room for their guys to lift. To me, they don't really need to jump right now. They have a short amount of time in the weight room. They're out at practice 2 hours a day. I really don't think they need much more plyometric training. And I don't think 15 jumps or whatever the amount of jumps we would do in the weight room is going to make much of a difference. Right? They get a ton of that shit at practice. What we are doing, they actually train Fridays. So early on in the week, we're hitting our squats, and then they have that third or sometimes fourth day in the weight room, and it's close to a game. We'll do a few jumps just as to kind of get their bodies moving, okay? But it's not super important what I'm pairing them with. We're doing some jumps to kind of keep them moving and kind of wake their bodies up before their workout, okay? So for that situation, it's not super important what type of jump they're doing, okay? But like a track kid or whatever, that's where I think it'll have more impact.